Some of the decisions that shape your life most happen when nobody is looking, and that's what makes them so easy to dismiss. Nobody saw it. Nobody confronted you. Nothing immediately fell apart. So you tell yourself, it wasn't that serious. It was only this once. And because the outside world looks exactly the same, you assume nothing really changed. But something did change. Maybe nobody around you knows what happened, but you do. And now the next conversation is different. The next moment of trust feels different. The next time somebody looks you in the eye, you are carrying information they don't have. That's one of the first ways a harmful secret works. Before it changes your circumstances, it begins changing you. And that change rarely stays contained. Here's what happens next. Life keeps moving, and eventually, something touches what you hid. A simple question, a missing detail. Someone notices something doesn't line up. And suddenly, the secret that felt small starts demanding another decision. Do I tell the truth now, or do I protect what I already hid? And that's how one secret can start multiplying. You don't only have the original thing anymore. Now you need an explanation. Maybe a half-truth, maybe a lie, maybe another detail that keeps the first detail from being exposed. And now there are two, then three. Not because you planned to build a double life, but because hidden wrong often needs protection. And every time you protect it, it becomes harder to simply tell the truth. Something else happens when the hidden behavior is repeated. The first time, you may feel the resistance. You hesitate. You know something isn't right. But the next time, maybe the pause is shorter. The explanation comes faster. The compromise feels more familiar. And that's dangerous, because your conscience isn't only reacting to what you do. In a sense, you're training it by what you keep doing. The frightening part isn't always that the secret gets bigger. Sometimes you simply get more comfortable with it. What once bothered you now barely interrupts your day. What once felt dishonest starts feeling normal. And when something wrong can live beside your ordinary conversations, your work, your family, your prayers, without disturbing you like it used to, the secret has already changed more than your behavior. It's changing what you tolerate inside yourself. A secret doesn't have to be discovered to affect a relationship. You can still eat together, still laugh, still talk about your day. Everything may look normal. But when you're carrying something you are determined they cannot know, something changes. They are close to you, but they don't have access to the whole truth about you. And now, part of your energy isn't being used to love them. It's being used to keep them from seeing something. And eventually, you start managing what people are allowed to see. Which question feels safe? Which subject gets changed? What stays private? What gets explained away? Maybe they don't know what you're hiding, but they can feel that something is being protected. They notice when you become defensive, when you pull away, when a simple question gets a strange reaction. That's how a secret can begin damaging trust before anyone even knows what the secret is. And then there's your relationship with God. You may still go to church, still sing, still say the right things, but private compromise can follow you into the quiet moments. You know what you've been hiding, and suddenly, simple honesty with God feels harder. Not because he needed someone else to tell him, but because you are trying to come close while still protecting what you don't want to surrender. And here's the truth that can feel uncomfortable. God already knows. The secret may be hidden from your family, from your friends, from the people sitting beside you at church, but it has never been hidden from him. So the answer isn't to become better at acting normal in His presence. It's to become honest. Maybe you're not ready to solve everything in one moment, but the first movement toward freedom is always away from pretending. A hidden life takes maintenance. You have to remember what you said, who knows what, which explanation you gave to whom, which detail needs to stay out of which conversation. And that means something that once seemed like a private shortcut starts taking up mental space. Attention, energy. You aren't only living your actual life anymore. You're also maintaining the version of it you need other people to believe. And then ordinary life starts feeling dangerous. A question, a phone call, someone finding something you forgot about, someone remembering a detail differently. None of those things would be frightening on their own, but now they might expose what you've been protecting. So the secret doesn't only live in one hidden corner of your life, it starts changing how you experience the rest of your life. That's the cost people rarely see when secrecy first feels easy. And this is where a private secret can become someone else's pain. They ask a normal question, but to you, it touches the thing you're hiding. So you react to more than what they actually said. You get defensive, sharp, maybe distant, and they're left wondering, what did I do? They don't know the real cause, but they still experience the consequence. And over time, people can start adjusting around you. They stop asking certain questions. They avoid certain subjects. Maybe they give you more space. Not because they understand what's happening, but because they know something makes you react. That's how hidden choices can damage relationships without ever being announced. The secret stays hidden, but the distance it creates doesn't. And eventually, you have to ask, what am I protecting? And what is that protection already costing me? So maybe the wrong question is, did I get away with it? Because what does getting away with it even mean? Nobody caught you? Nobody confronted you? No consequence showed up immediately? Look again. What happened to your honesty, your peace of mind, your ability to receive trust freely, your openness with God, your closeness with the people around you? Maybe the secret was never consequence-free. Maybe the consequences just started somewhere people couldn't see. So instead of asking, who knows, maybe ask something harder. What is this secret doing to me? What is it teaching me to tolerate? What is it making me protect? Who am I becoming when no one else is there to see? Because the hidden life is still your life. And whether anyone applauds it, discovers it, or confronts it, it is shaping you. But that's only one side of the story. Because what happens in secret doesn't always destroy. Some hidden things build a person. And that's where we go next. But there's another side to the hidden life. And we need to see it. Because not everything done in secret is something you should be ashamed of. Some of the most beautiful choices you will ever make may happen with no audience at all. Nobody notices. Nobody thanks you. Nobody even knows there was something you could have ignored, but didn't. And somehow, that quiet choice still matters. And maybe no one ever finds out. No one knows you stayed behind. No one knows you fixed it. No one knows you chose the harder thing when walking away would have been easier. And that's okay, because goodness doesn't become meaningless just because nobody applauded. Integrity doesn't need an audience to be integrity. And a faithful choice doesn't become smaller because it happened quietly. Sometimes the test isn't whether you'll do something terrible. Sometimes it's much quieter. Someone gives you credit that isn't really yours. You could take it. Nobody in the room would question you. Maybe the person who actually did the work doesn't even speak up. So now the decision is private in a different way. Not, what can I hide? But, what will I do when honesty costs me something pleasant? And you simply say, that wasn't really mine. That was theirs. Maybe the moment lasts 5 seconds. Maybe everybody moves on immediately. But something happened inside you. You chose truth when a lie would have rewarded you. You chose honesty without needing to be forced into it. And little choices like that, they begin forming a person who doesn't need to be watched in order to be faithful. Remember what we saw with harmful habits? The more you repeat them, the easier they can become. But the same principle can work in another direction. You can practice honesty until honesty becomes your instinct. You can practice generosity until your first thought isn't, what do I get? You can practice faithfulness until doing the right thing doesn't require a long internal argument every single time. That's what private choices can do. They don't only produce one good action, they start building a pattern. And the pattern begins shaping your character. You are becoming the kind of person who tells the truth even before someone demands it. The kind of person who returns what isn't yours, even when keeping it would be easy. The kind of person whose character doesn't disappear when the audience does. Here's another question. Would you still give if the person receiving it never knew it came from you? Would you still help if there was no thank you, no public moment, no one telling you how generous you are? What if they never knew? That question can reveal something about why we wanted to give in the first place. And maybe you get to see the difference your gift made. They breathe easier. A burden gets lighter. Something they needed is finally there. And they never know your name was connected to it. There is something beautiful about that. Because for once, you don't own the moment. You don't need their gratitude to prove the love was real. You simply helped. And then you let the good belong to them. And sometimes the good thing you do in secret is prayer. Not the easy kind. Not praying for someone you already feel warm toward. I mean, someone hurt you, disappointed you. Maybe you're still carrying the conversation in your head, and then you pray for them. Not because suddenly what happened doesn't hurt, but because you don't want the hurt to decide who you become. Maybe they don't change. Maybe they never know you prayed for them. Maybe the problem between you is still real, but the next time you see them, something in your own response can begin to change. You're a little less eager to punish, a little less determined to make them feel what they made you feel. And that matters, because sometimes the first answer to a hidden prayer isn't that God changes the other person. Sometimes He begins working on you. Some service happens before anybody arrives. No microphone, no stage, no one saying, "Thank you for being so faithful." You simply notice something needs doing, and you do it. And maybe that's exactly why the moment is so revealing. Because when nobody is there to admire your service, you're left with a very simple question. Was I serving to be seen, or was I serving because it was right? Later, people walk in. They use what was prepared. They benefit from what somebody did before they arrived, and they may never know it was you. But the purpose was still fulfilled. Someone was served. Someone's burden was made lighter. And you learned something too. You learned that faithfulness can survive without being noticed. That's a freedom public praise can never give you. And sometimes being unseen does hurt. You gave, you stayed, you served. You chose the right thing. and nobody noticed. Maybe part of you wanted someone to notice. That's human. You don't have to pretend. You never feel that. But the absence of human recognition doesn't mean the moment was actually unseen. God sees, not just the things you wish you could hide. He sees the quiet obedience too. The generosity nobody traced back to you. The prayer nobody heard. The temptation you walked away from without announcing it. The service that never made you look important. And no, that doesn't mean you do good things, so God owes you something later. It means your faithfulness is not meaningless just because the room was empty. He sees, and sometimes that is enough. Here's why the hidden life matters so much. Eventually, pressure comes. Something goes wrong. Someone questions you. You're tempted. You're tired. You're disappointed. And in those moments, you don't suddenly become a completely different person. You often reach for the character you've been practicing, the habits you've been building when nobody was watching. That's when the private life starts becoming visible. So the question isn't only, what do I do when people are watching? Maybe the deeper question is, what am I practicing when they aren't? Am I practicing deception, resentment, compromise, or am I practicing honesty, prayer, generosity, faithfulness? Because both kinds of hidden choices are doing something. Both are forming habits. Both are shaping the person who eventually walks back into the room. And maybe, as you hear this, there's one hidden thing you already know you need to stop protecting. Not because God is waiting to humiliate you, but because hiding it is keeping you from something you desperately need: truth, forgiveness, restoration. And that's where we have to go next. Knowing you should tell the truth and actually telling it are not the same thing. Because now you start imagining what honesty might cost. What will they think? What happens next? Will they trust me? Will there be consequences? And suddenly, hiding it one more time feels easier. Just one more explanation, one more delay, one more day before you have to face it. That's how a secret begs to survive. And maybe this is the first thing you need to do. Not explain it better, not make it smaller, not find a reason why it really wasn't that bad. Just stop protecting it. Let the truth be true, even if it makes you uncomfortable, even if you're afraid of what comes after, because you cannot leave a secret behind while you're still working to keep it alive. And when you finally start talking, you may feel yourself reaching for the excuses. I was under pressure. I didn't mean for it to go this far. They should have. But there it is again, that instinct to protect yourself from the full weight of what happened. And confession can't really begin while the excuse is still doing all the talking. Sometimes confession sounds painfully simple. I did it. I knew it was wrong. I hid it. And I wasn't honest when I had the chance. No decoration, no clever language, no attempt to make yourself look better while admitting you were wrong. Just truth. And that can feel terrifying, because for the first time, the person in front of you is hearing what you've been carrying alone. And this is important. Telling the truth doesn't always mean everything becomes easy 5 minutes later. There may still be a consequence. Trust may need time. Something may need to be repaired. A responsibility may change. And yes, that can hurt, especially when part of you hoped confession would make the whole problem disappear immediately. But forgiveness and consequences are not always the same question. You may still wish you could go back, undo it, avoid the cost. But notice what's different now. You are no longer spending your energy protecting the lie. You don't have to remember which version you told. You don't have to panic when someone asks the wrong question. The consequence may still be real, but the deception is no longer growing, and that matters a lot. And then there's the conversation with God. Maybe you've avoided it because you don't even know what to say. But confession isn't you giving God new information. He already knew. He knew before you found the courage to say it. And somehow that makes the hiding feel even more exhausting, because all this time you weren't keeping God informed. You were keeping yourself guarded. So maybe your prayer doesn't need beautiful language. Maybe it's simply, God, I was wrong. I've been hiding. I need your mercy. And for once, you stop arguing, stop bargaining, stop explaining. You let yourself stand before him as you actually are. Not the edited version, not the public version, you. And that's where grace can finally be received as grace. Not because you earned it, because you needed it. And sometimes the confession has another name attached to it. Someone you hurt while you were hiding. Maybe they didn't know what the secret was, but they felt your defensiveness, your distance, your anger. And now you have to tell the truth about that too. I treated you like you were the problem, when really I was protecting something in me. That's not easy to say. And then you repair what you can. You don't say, I apologized, so you have to trust me now. You don't demand that their hurt disappear on your schedule. You own your part. You make right what can be made right. You give them room to process. And you let consistency do what one emotional apology cannot do overnight. Because repentance is more than feeling bad. It begins changing how you live next. And then something small happens. The same kind of question that once made you defensive comes again. The same situation, the same person. But this time, your response is different. You don't panic. You don't protect. You don't turn a harmless question into a threat. And maybe they notice. Not because you announced, I've changed, but because, for once, they don't have to walk around the secret. Trust usually doesn't come back with one big moment. It comes back in little ones. You tell the truth when lying would be easier. You follow through. You stop hiding. You become predictable in a good way. And little by little, someone may begin to relax around you again. Maybe not completely, not yet, but enough to risk trusting you with something small. And if that happens, don't rush it. Honor it. And then, one day, you face the same kind of moment that started all of this. Nobody is watching. You made a mistake. You could hide it, but something is different now. You don't have to scan the room first. You don't need a second story. You simply deal with what happened. Not because you're perfect, because honesty is becoming more natural than hiding. And that's one of the quiet gifts of integrity. You don't need two versions of yourself anymore. One for public, one for private, one that people admire, and another you have to protect. Who you are alone and who you are in front of people begin moving in the same direction. Not perfectly, but honestly. And there is a kind of peace in that secrecy can never give you. So think about where we started. A hidden wrong that seemed small started affecting conscience, trust, prayer, and relationships. But hidden faithfulness was shaping something too. Honesty, generosity, prayer, service, character. That's why what you do when no one is watching matters so much. Because eventually, the private life walks into the public one. And if you're carrying something hidden right now, maybe you're tired, tired of remembering, tired of defending, tired of wondering what happens if somebody finds out. You don't have to build another layer around it. You can begin with truth. Bring it honestly before God. Where another person has been harmed, take responsibility. Repair what you can. Accept that some trust may take time, and then keep walking in the truth. Not to earn God's love, not to prove you are finally good enough, but because in Christ, you don't have to live by hiding anymore. What happens in secret is still shaping your life, so let the hidden places become places of honesty, faithfulness, and grace. And when you fail, don't run deeper into the secret. Run back to the truth. Run back to Christ.